Hello everyone, Nathan Winters from the Wyoming Family Alliance here, and I just want to give you a brief update again at the end of week number 3 at the Wyoming Legislature. Of the more than 30 bills that we have been watching and working very closely on during this session, it's going very well. They are all still in play, and it has been a tremendous year. And so I want to give you an update on several of them. We can't touch on all of them, but several of them have had major action that has taken place over the last week. And so I want to let you know what we have been doing. First of all, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, a bill that is very near and dear to my heart. I had the privilege of being the first to sponsor that bill about 10 years ago. Well, on Monday, that bill passed through committee and then through the entire House of Representatives a few days later with a passage of 57-3. And what was wonderful about that, it was an honor for me to be invited by the sponsor, Representative Art Washut, to sit with him and help present this bill. It brought back a lot of memories from 10 years ago when I presented it for the first time. But interestingly, this go around, the bill was bipartisan. While all 3 no votes were Democrat, 3 Democrats actually wound up voting for the bill. And I'm thankful for that, because it should be understood that freedom of conscience ought to be a bipartisan issue. This isn't about being conservative or liberal, Democrat or Republican, or any other party. This is really about standing up for the First Amendment and making sure that those rights, which are foundational to having a free country, are upheld. And so this bill ensures that government cannot be weaponized against the sincerely held religious beliefs of its people. The second bill I want to tell you about is a bill entitled Compelled Speech is Not Free Speech. This is a Senate file brought by Senator Lynn Hutchings, and she presented this bill to the Senate Judiciary Committee, where it passed 5-0. It's ready to be heard before the entire Senate in the upcoming week. And what this bill does is simply states that if a government entity such as a city or a school district tries to force its employees to speak the opposite of what they know to be true, such as forcing them to use gender pronouns that are opposite reality, the government simply cannot do that. And so it just empowers the citizens of the state to ensure that their right to free speech, again, is protected. On Wednesday, Rachel Rodriguez Williams presented legislation protecting pregnancy resource centers from the pro-abortion industry trying to shut them down using government force. That bill passed committee 7-1, and it will be heard in the upcoming days by the entire House of Representatives in what is known as Committee of the Whole. Then on Thursday, there's a wonderful piece of legislation. It's called Senate File 103. It's entitled Terminating and Defunding Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the University of Wyoming. This was presented by Senator Sherry Steinmetz, who has spent a lot of time working very diligently on this issue. I had the privilege of speaking toward it, and I started my testimony on this bill by reading the text message I had received a few months ago from a mother of a nursing student. This nursing student was told that she would need to perform a project on social justice. And in that project, it was clearly operating based on the oppressor-oppressed dynamic, the framework that is included in Marxist thought. And so the point being, that kind of thing should never be forced on a university student, a young person. And thankfully, this bill passed 5-0, and it will be heard by the entire Senate soon as well. That same day, a bill was heard before the House Travel, Recreation, and Wildlife and Cultural Resources Committee that I believe that we really need to watch. It's a bill called House Bill 162, entitled Interactive Gaming. Now, at first glance, it doesn't seem to be that challenging of a bill. In many places, this bill is often called the FanDuel and DraftKings bill. What it does is it tries to build a framework for online gaming, interactive gaming. The reason why we're wanting to watch that bill, last July, we heard tremendous testimony we were in Washington, D.C., the team here at Wyoming Family Alliance, many of us were in this meeting, where it became clear that this online gaming is very predatory toward young men. One of the things that gaming has done across the country, and we see it growing more and more, is it really locks in young men especially in a position where they become essentially serfs for the rest of their life. What happens is they bet more and more and more. They access then their credit cards and this very addictive kind of gaming, which releases an endorphin rush, much like taking drugs, especially in young men. It's something that becomes overwhelming. And so for the rest of their life, they wind up paying off a credit card debt or something where they've lost so much money. This can be very, very damaging to young men especially, but to families and many others, because gaming has always been a problem. And I've said this many times. Gambling should be viewed as a tax on people who don't do math very well. When you look at the odds that are stacked against you with gambling, whether it's a lottery ticket, and this is the reason why I used to argue against the lottery in the state of Wyoming and was able to hold it off for some time until finally the year after I passed out of the legislature, what happened is lottery then passed through. And we just watch the damage that's done to many people. And there's a lot of arguments that people will bring in defense of trying to just allow supposed recreation. But when you look into the numbers, there are a lot of people who are damaged by it. So we're just watching this bill very closely and would ask for you to pray for us that the Lord would give us wisdom so that we know how to speak on that well. Then on Friday was a big day at the Wyoming legislature. House Bill 222, the Medical Ethics Defense Act, was presented by Representative Pepper Ottman. This important legislation defends doctors and other medical providers if they are told that they must perform surgeries that are opposite their Hippocratic oath, surgeries that are usually based on ideology that is wrong and many times would cause a doctor to have to perform a surgery that would remove a healthy body part. As you probably know, with gender surgeries, this is something highly problematic, and no doctor should be forced into trying to perform a sex change operation or prescribe drugs that would damage the health of a young person because of political ideology. This bill will continue to be heard in the upcoming week. So please do keep that in your mind as we think of House Bill 222. Then on Friday, the last bill that we talked about this week and that we were in committee with was House Bill 200. It's a bill designed to protect parents' rights. There was a lady that called in to speak on that bill just before I got up to speak, and she told very briefly her story. She didn't go into great detail, but this was a mother over in Rock Springs where a school district had been transitioning her child. This was a heart-wrenching moment because not that long ago, I was on the phone with this mother as I heard the story, and I heard the tears in her voice and the sorrow and frustration with someone, a school district especially, dominating her and saying that she had to allow all of these things to happen that would cause tremendous damage to her daughter. And sure enough, those things have happened over time, and I can't get into all the details. For me, as I got up to speak directly afterward, it was hard for me to choke back the tears, because it was the surreal moment where having individuals from teachers' organizations who believe clearly something opposite what most of the state of Wyoming believe, as they are arguing against legislation like this, and then knowing that there's a mother who's trying to just battle for her daughter as she gives testimony. It was hard for me not to break down with emotion in the midst of it. But one thing is clear. Many within the education establishment and the education industry have for too long pressed an agenda that parents from across the state of Wyoming, and it's clear from across the United States of America, have had enough of. And what they are fighting for is the understanding that it is the parent that should sit in the driver's seat of a child's education and not an education establishment or industry. This bill is very important, House Bill 200. And so it will continue to be heard in the upcoming week. But I'll tell you this, we need your help. We need you to reach out to your state senator, to your state legislator, and let them know that you support them. Thank you so much for tuning in. For more information, just follow us on wyomefambilltracker.com, wyomefambilltracker.com, or join us at wyomingfamily.org and stay up to date with the important work being done on behalf of families across the state of Wyoming. Thank you so much for tuning in.